They laughed when you dreamed bigger. They rolled their eyes when you said, I'm going to change. They whispered behind your back when you started acting different. Not because you were doing something wrong, but because you were doing something they were too afraid to do. Growth is uncomfortable, especially for the people who choose to stay the same. And the moment you start to break out of who they thought you were, they get scared. Scared that you'll succeed. Scared that your evolution will expose their stagnation. Scared that they won't know how to control you anymore. You see, people don't fear your failure, they expect it. What they fear is your success. People fear what they don't understand until it becomes undeniable. It's a simple truth, yet it defines so many of our life experiences. Every time you take a step in a direction that doesn't make sense to others, you will face resistance. You'll be questioned, doubted, laughed at, maybe even rejected. Not because you're wrong, not because you're off track, but because you've started speaking a language they haven't learned yet. You've tapped into a version of yourself they don't recognize. And anything unfamiliar becomes a threat to what they think they know. Most people live their lives inside the comfort of the known. They rely on predictability, on patterns that confirm their beliefs and validate their choices. So when you begin to grow, when you start making choices they wouldn't dare make, when you start chasing dreams they buried a long time ago, that scares them. Because it challenges the safety of their normal. It confronts the quiet compromises they've made with themselves. Your vision, your ambition, your refusal to settle, those things will unsettle them. You're not doing anything to them, but your existence begins to reflect everything they've chosen to avoid. They don't understand how you can keep going after being told no. They don't understand how you can take risks without guarantees. They don't understand how you can stay focused when there's no applause. That lack of understanding becomes discomfort. And discomfort, if left unchecked, turns into fear. At first, they dismiss you. They tell you it's impossible. They label your dreams as unrealistic, your mindset as arrogant, your silence as distance. They minimize your progress because accepting it would require them to accept a hard truth. You're doing what they didn't. You're becoming what they were too afraid to be. But time is funny. Time has a way of revealing the truth. Because when you keep showing up, when you keep building in the dark, when you stay consistent even when nobody's clapping, eventually what they don't understand becomes undeniable. The results show. The growth becomes visible. The person you've become no longer fits their limited narrative. And now they're forced to reckon with a reality they didn't prepare for. You were right to believe in yourself. That's when the conversation shifts. Suddenly, the silence turns to curiosity. The judgment turns to praise. The same people who didn't understand you will now want to be associated with you. They'll say, I always knew you had it in you. They'll rewrite their history to make space for your success because it's easier than admitting they didn't believe in you when it mattered. But here's the thing. Your job was never to be understood. It was to be true to yourself. You weren't here to convince them. You were here to become, to grow, to rise. And yes, they may have feared you, they may have questioned you, but they also watched you. And deep down, even in their fear, they were inspired. Because courage has a strange way of reaching people, even when they pretend it doesn't. So keep walking your path. Keep choosing growth over comfort, clarity over validation, progress over popularity. Because what they fear today, they'll admire tomorrow. And what they don't understand now, they'll one day wish they had. Your courage to grow threatens their comfort zone. It doesn't always look like courage from the outside. Sometimes it just looks like making different choices, turning down plans to focus on your goals, saying no to distractions, speaking up when it's easier to stay quiet, walking away from people, places, and habits that no longer serve the person you're trying to become. But those small decisions, those subtle shifts, are where real transformation begins. And every time you choose growth, even in silence, it makes someone uncomfortable. People get used to who you were. They build expectations around that version of you. They know how to talk to that version, how to manage it, how to feel secure next to it. But when you start changing, when you start elevating your mindset, your priorities, your standards, it shakes the foundation they built around your old self. Suddenly, the version of you that made them feel safe is disappearing. And that can feel like a threat, even if you've done nothing wrong. Your courage to improve yourself highlights their choice not to. It puts a mirror in front of them, and not everyone is ready to look. Because if you can grow, if you can evolve, then what does that say about the excuses they've been using to stay the same? It's not that they want you to fail. It's that your success would prove they could have tried harder. And that's a heavy truth to carry. Some will try to downplay your growth. They'll say you've changed like it's a bad thing. They'll act like you're too serious or too focused. They'll joke about how you don't come around as much anymore. But what they're really saying is, I miss the version of you that didn't make me question myself. And you'll feel it. The distance, the judgment, the tension. It might tempt you to shrink, to downplay your progress so they feel better, to soften your light so it doesn't cast a shadow. But that's not what you were made for. You weren't made to make others comfortable with their own inaction. You weren't made to stay in places where your growth feels like betrayal. You were made to grow, to stretch, to expand, and in doing so, to show others what's possible. The truth is, your courage might cost you some connections, but those weren't rooted in love, they were rooted in familiarity, and familiarity doesn't always mean support. Sometimes it's just shared stagnation, and when you decide to move forward, that shared bond breaks. That's not your fault. That's just the cost of becoming. But here's the beauty. Your courage also attracts the right people. The ones who are inspired by your discipline. The ones who don't feel threatened by your elevation but encouraged by it. The ones who aren't looking for someone to stay stuck with, but someone to rise with. Those people exist. And the more you honor your growth, the more they'll find you. So don't let their discomfort make you doubt your direction. Keep going. Keep choosing what's right over what's easy. Keep expanding even when it means outgrowing people who once felt like home. Because true courage isn't just about facing failure. It's about facing the fear of leaving others behind while trusting that what you're moving toward is worth it. Your courage isn't the problem. It's the wake-up call they didn't ask for, and maybe, just maybe, it's the permission they secretly needed. Being misunderstood is often the first sign of transformation. It doesn't feel like growth at first, it feels like loneliness. It feels like silence in rooms where you used to feel seen, like distance in relationships that once felt effortless. It feels like people looking at you sideways, questioning your intentions, misreading your silence, assuming your change is a mask or a phase. But it's not. It's the shedding of old skin, and shedding is never a clean or comfortable process. When you start to change, the first thing that shifts is how others perceive you. You're no longer predictable. You no longer respond the same way. You're quieter in conversations that used to excite you. You pull back from circles where you once belonged. And that unsettles people. They'll say you're acting different. But that's because you are. Growth requires difference. And difference, to the unprepared, feels like a threat. The people around you may not understand the weight of what you're going through. They don't see the internal battle, the nights spent doubting yourself, the mornings where you fight to stay consistent, the fear of outgrowing people you still love. All they see is your distance, your disinterest in small talk, your obsession with purpose, clarity, peace. And because they don't understand it, they'll label it. They'll say you're cold, arrogant, lost. But they're only projecting their discomfort with your evolution. Transformation requires solitude. It demands space. You can't carry everyone with you into the next version of yourself. Some people are only meant to understand the you they met. And that's okay. Because not everyone is meant to walk with you through every chapter. Some are only there to teach you something. About trust, about limits, about who you no longer want to be. But don't let being misunderstood convince you that you're wrong. The caterpillar isn't understood by the cocoon. And the butterfly isn't explained by the past it left behind. Your journey isn't meant to be explained in real time. It's meant to be lived, wrestled with, endured, and only in hindsight will it all make sense. To you and maybe eventually to others, being misunderstood means you're no longer living to meet expectations. You're no longer performing for applause. You're moving from truth now, from instinct, from vision. You're choosing alignment over approval. And that scares people who've built their identity around being accepted. Your refusal to conform looks like rebellion to them. Your healing looks like distance. Your silence looks like judgment. But you're not trying to prove anything. You're just becoming who you were always meant to be. It's okay to not be understood right now. You're not finished yet. You're in process, in motion. And people rarely understand what they can't categorize. You've stepped outside the familiar, and anything outside the familiar takes time to be recognized for what it really is. Growth, purpose, freedom. Keep going. Let the silence refine you. Let the misunderstanding humble you. Let the distance teach you who truly sees you, even when they don't fully get it. Because on the other side of this transformation is a version of you that's clearer, stronger, and far more rooted than the one you're leaving behind. Being misunderstood isn't rejection. It's confirmation that you're not who you used to be. And that's exactly the point. Their fear was never about you. It was about losing control. When people say you've changed, it's really about your change itself. It's about what your change means for their sense of control. It's about the loss of influence they once had over your thoughts, your choices, your direction. They weren't afraid of who you were becoming. They were afraid that your growth meant they no longer had a hold on you. You no longer needed their validation, their approval, their permission. And for some, that loss feels personal. Control isn't always loud. It doesn't always come in the form of demands or rules. Sometimes it's subtle. It shows up in expectations, the way they expect you to act, think, agree. It shows up in jokes that carry a hidden message. Stay where we can understand you. It shows up in the pressure to stay the same because your evolution disrupts the balance they've come to rely on. When you rise, it forces them to confront what they've refused to face in themselves. It's easier for people to believe you're wrong than to admit they're stuck. Easier to say you're being selfish than to question why they depended on your old self to feel secure. You see, the version of you that used to agree, comply, stay quiet, that version served their comfort. The moment you start to assert your boundaries, protect your peace, and walk in purpose, you challenge their sense of authority over your life. And that's the real fear. They're not scared of your goals, they're scared of your independence. They're not scared of your voice, they're scared you might stop listening to theirs. Because when you stop needing them in the way you used to, they feel powerless. And for some people, losing that power is more painful than celebrating your growth. This is especially true in relationships that were built on unspoken hierarchies. Friendships where one person always needed more. Families where expectations defined love. Environments where obedience was mistaken for loyalty. When you begin to see yourself clearly, you stop playing the role others cast for you, and when you stop playing that role, they don't know who you are anymore. Worse, they don't know who they are without the version of you that kept them feeling in control. But your life isn't a script written for someone else's comfort. You are not here to be manageable. You are not here to be predictable. You are here to grow, to expand, to redefine what's possible for yourself. And yes, your growth might look like rebellion to those who were only at peace when you were silent, but it's not rebellion. It's alignment. It's truth. It's freedom. You will lose people in the process. People who can confuse control with care. People who say they love you, but only when you stay in the shape that fits their narrative. Let them go. Love them from a distance if you must. But don't return to the smallness that made them feel big. It's not your job to manage other people's fear. Your responsibility is to live honestly, to move boldly, to choose purpose over permission, because the people who truly care for you will never fear your growth. They'll celebrate it. They'll grow with you. They'll adjust to your evolution instead of resenting it. The moment you break free from the grip of control, spoken or unspoken, is the moment you begin to truly live. So let them fear what they can no longer contain. Let them worry about the power they lost. Because you've gained something far more important, yourself. You were never meant to be accepted by everyone. You were meant to become undeniable. Acceptance feels good. It's comfortable. It gives us a sense of belonging, a sense that we're seen and valued. But the truth is, chasing universal acceptance is a trap. Because in trying to please everyone, you dilute the very thing that makes you powerful, your authenticity. You begin to trade your voice for applause, your truth for approval. And over time, you forget who you are just to be liked by people who wouldn't love the real you anyway. The people who matter, who are meant to walk with you, grow with you, build with you, don't need you to shrink or edit yourself to fit their expectations. They don't need you to be agreeable. They need you to be real. Because real is rare. Real is powerful. Real is what lasts. When you start living from your truth, when you stop needing to be liked and start choosing to be honest, you'll upset people. You'll lose invitations, followers, maybe even relationships. But what you gain in return is something far more valuable. Clarity. Clarity about who actually supports you. Clarity about your values, your direction, your identity. You stop performing and start becoming. And becoming is messy, it's bold, and most of all, it's undeniable. Undeniable doesn't mean everyone agrees with you. It means they can't ignore you. It means your presence speaks before you do. It means your results silence every doubt, every rumor, every whisper that tried to reduce you to who you used to be. Because undeniable people are built in silence, shaped in resistance, and refined in rejection. Rejection isn't the enemy, it's often the very confirmation that you're on the right path. If everyone agrees with you, chances are you're not doing anything disruptive enough to matter. The truth is, most of the world's greatest minds, leaders, creators, and changemakers were misunderstood in real time. They were criticized, doubted, pushed aside, until the impact of their work became too loud to deny. That's the path of anyone who dares to do something different. And you were never built to blend in. So stop chasing acceptance. Stop watering down your ideas. Stop softening your voice to keep the peace. Peace that costs your identity isn't peace. It's control. And the longer you seek validation from people who don't understand your calling, the further you drift from it. Your job is to build something real, to live with purpose, to move in alignment with what sets your soul on fire, to create a life so full of integrity, discipline, and impact that even the ones who try to count you out have no choice but to acknowledge what you've become. That's what it means to be undeniable. Not loud, not boastful, but consistent, rooted, and unshakably committed to who you are becoming. You don't need to be accepted by everyone. Because some people only accept you when you're small, quiet, and easy to manage. You weren't born for that. You were born to stand tall in your truth, to walk with conviction, to rise with grace, even when no one claps for you. So let them misunderstand you. Let them doubt you. Let them talk. Because while they watch, you're building. You're evolving. You're becoming. And when you reach that point, when your results echo louder than their opinions, there'll be no more arguments to make, no more approval to beg for. You'll be undeniable. And that's more powerful than being liked. Legacy is built when your presence is missed more than your compliance was appreciated. It's easy to be appreciated when you go along with what's expected, when you say yes, when you don't challenge the status quo, when you fit into the mold someone else made for you. Compliance is comfortable. For them, it keeps the peace. It avoids conflict. It makes you predictable, easy to manage, easy to define. But legacy is never born out of compliance. Legacy is born from the quiet, sometimes lonely decision to be real rather than agreeable. The truth is, while they may thank you for following the rules, they won't remember you for it. Because those who simply follow the path rarely leave footprints behind. The ones who are remembered are those who dared to walk differently, who left not just memories but impact, whose absence was felt deeper than their presence was praised. When you stop complying just to keep others comfortable, things shift. You stop being the one who nods politely when something feels wrong. You stop being the one who stays silent in rooms that need truth. And yes, at first you'll be met with resistance, discomfort, maybe even isolation. Because when you start living by principle instead of permission, people who benefited from your passivity feel threatened. But in the long run, people don't miss the version of you that went along with everything. They miss the one who stood for something, the one who brought energy, vision, integrity. They miss the one who challenged them to think, to stretch, to grow. You don't become unforgettable by being easy. You become unforgettable by being authentic. The hard part is, you may not be celebrated for that in the moment. When you start setting boundaries, you'll be called difficult. When you speak up, you'll be called disruptive. When you walk away from environments that drain your spirit, they'll say you gave up. But stay the course. Because the real measure of who you are isn't always seen while you're in the room, it's felt after you've left it. Legacy is what remains when you're no longer present to explain yourself. It's the values you lived by. The lives you touched, the standards you set just by being who you were. It's the silence that follows your exit, not because you blended in, but because your presence shifted the atmosphere. People won't always appreciate your growth while it's happening. Growth can be inconvenient for others, especially when it forces them to confront their own stagnation. After the dust settles, when they look back and realize who you were, what you gave, and how consistently you lived with purpose, that's when they'll feel the weight of your absence. And when they do, it won't be because you followed every rule or said yes every time you were asked to. It'll be because you led with integrity, because you held your ground, because you chose authenticity over acceptance. So don't be afraid to be misunderstood while you're becoming. Don't bend just to be liked. Don't quiet your truth to keep the room calm. Instead, live in a way that demands reflection. Show up fully, speak clearly, act with purpose. And when the time comes for you to move on, whether from a space, a season, or this life, let your absence echo louder than your silence ever could. That's how legacy is made. Not in applause, not in approval, but in the unmistakable presence you leave behind when you are no longer there to give it.